Hello everyone, my name is Cletus and welcome to the clan. So without further ado, let's get into this video. But before we get into the video, we are the champions, my friend. Okay, enough about that. We've been celebrating the whole weekend, haven't we? But anyways, let's get back to business, guys, because we are going back to the North Gauteng High Court at the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. And to understand, we have a Mr. Wendell Jonathan. Last time I called him Joseph, but okay, it's Jonathan. I apologize that I gave him a wrong surname. And of course, he is in Egypt right now. You know that river, the biggest river in Africa, the Nile? He's denying everything. He's like, no, I deny that. I have no knowledge of that. No, I disagree. I'm like, of course, you are not going to agree to anything that is going to post on you because you know the implications legally as well as ginindally. If you are not going to toe the line and basically admit that, yes, I tortured Ntanzi, I tortured accused number one, I also tubed number one, I also tubed accused number two, I also beat number one, I also beat accused number two, of course, that's jail time for him. And of course, if he admits to this, Gininda is also going to come tumbling down on him like the Carlton Center falling all over him. So that is why he has to deny everything, even though as he's denying things, he's doing what? He's also entangling himself with the response that he is actually giving in court. He was caught several times, especially under Advocate Mshololo's cross-examination, which I'm going to get to because I feel that that cross-examination was fire. It was so much fire that even the witness himself was like, oh my goodness, nobody believes a word I'm saying at this point in time because it involved procedure. You know, when you involve procedure, it's like involving the Constitution as well. And then procedure will pin you against the wall. One of which is how small was the space in the CSC office or that police station. He goes and he contradicts Khadeb. And then he realizes, oh shoot, I think I just contradicted, oh my, what's the script again? He almost sounded as if that's what he was saying because his voice as well began to descend like an aeroplane about to do its final approach at an international airport. And I was like, bro, what's happening there? So, of course, Advocate Mngome Zulu was focusing a lot on the assault, the torture, the tubing, as well as the beating of accused number one and accused number two. And one of the things that was also highlighted was the fact that accused number two was taken from his cell in the morning. The entire day, he was not returned. All through the night, he was not returned. And the only time they returned him back to his cell was at 2:30 in the morning. And you ask yourself, what was happening? Are police allowed to take, wanted to book out prisoners or suspects for this long? What does the logbook say? Of course, Advocate Shololo had asked on Friday for the occurrence book or OB book, as it's called. And I think it was submitted to her this afternoon by the state. And of course, she sought for more time. We are going to get to that because indeed the court was adjourned until tomorrow because of that fact. However, though, she is not done with Jonathan. But let's go back to Advocate Mngome Zulu, who was grilling this witness. And I think at some point he was getting a little bit irritated with Advocate Mngome Zulu. It was also quite interesting to see the judge being quiet throughout the cross-examination of Advocate Mngome Zulu. Yes, he did jump there where I felt it was justifiable for the judge to actually seek that clarification from Advocate Mngome Zulu. I think it was about, it was almost like putting words in the mouth of, I can't remember which officer, and then the judge wanted to know how am I going to use that as evidence, and of course, Advocate Mngome Zulu had to rephrase or abandon the question altogether. So I felt like, okay, the judge, indeed, he is towing the line. I like the fact that he's towing the line. I did not see Advocate Baloyi getting up and objecting. Yes, he may have stood up once or twice asking for relevance of this type of questioning, but it was neither here nor there because he still was explained away and he could not go beyond that objection, but to sit down. So I have a couple of interesting pointers that I picked up from the cross-examination of both Advocate Mngomezulu and Advocate Mshololo. The first one was Ntanzi being taken to Northwest Province. Of course, Jonathan denies that he was one of the escortees or escorts that took Ntanzi to Northwest. If you remember very well, Ntanzi was taken to Northwest where he met his friend Buthelezi. You remember that? And then the police officers were not standing too far away from them because they were eavesdropping on the conversation that they were having. Of course, Buthelezi did testify in court about that particular interaction between himself and Ntanzi, whom he considers a really good friend, not just a friend, but also a brother. And this is the same Buthelezi that saw that Ntanzi had not bathed. I'm thinking maybe he was smelling or he looked rather rough. And so he gave him 500 Rand to purchase things to bath, like soap, washing towel, and all of that sort of stuff, because he had not bathed. And of course, from there, which kind of like collaborates with everything that Ntanzi had actually told his legal representatives about what transpired in that particular day of the 18th to the 19th of June 2020. And everything that actually Ntanzi had told his lawyers is actually playing out. And I'm sure that the OB document is also going to collaborate with everything that Ntanzi had actually told his lawyers. Of course, if it disputes what Jonathan is saying, then of course it's going to dispute everything that Jonathan has denied about accused number one. Him being part of the tubing and the torturing and the beating and all that stuff on both accused number one and accused number two. So it's going to be quite interesting, but I felt like, why would you lie about something that can be proven? Okay, he did say there is the logbook for the vehicle, which he knew the number plate for it. And I was like, I think he's just saying it to get off these advocates off his back. But indeed, when these books, the logbooks are brought, I think they're going to be singing a different story, exactly what Musia was caught on his lies. And of course, Jonathan's going to say, oh, I have forgotten, oh, amnesia suddenly. And yet he would have submitted lies to the court. The other interesting question was about the CSC space, where he said it was quite tiny, and yet Radebe was saying something totally different. Even Advocate Mngomezulu asked him, so you are saying that the court must disregard the testimony of Radebe or Colonel Radebe? And then you could hear the pause, like, oh shoot, I just made a mistake. And then he was thinking of a lie, but Advocate Mngomezulu moved on. The other thing that I also picked up on the testimony by Jonathan is that while they were busy beating, while they were busy torturing, beating, tubing, as well as doing goodness knows what else to accuse number two, an officer by the name of Mukhani, I think, came and said, hey guys, leave Diamond. Meaning that maybe he saw the condition of accused number two, looking probably half dead or something like that. Maybe he developed some kind of emotion, humanity, or whatever it is that he developed, and told Jonathan, who was the leader of this tubing and torturing, and you could hear in his voice that this guy, scumbag, I think, in my own opinion, if you ever did what you are being alleged to have done. But of course, you're not going to admit to that, are you? And I don't think any cop that is going to be called on the stand, including Mukhane, is going to admit like, yeah, the way they were beating this guy, I actually came and intervened and said, leave that man. I don't think he's going to do that. I don't think he's going to, but it's going to be put to him that these were your words. Hopefully he will develop some kind of humanity, realizing that accused number two is saying, you the one who rescued me when I was almost killed by Jonathan, allegedly. And let's go to Advocate Mshololo's cross-examination. Like I said earlier, it was mostly focused on procedure that was followed in order to achieve whatever it is that they achieved on the 18th and the 19th of June 2020. And what I also liked about that cross-examination, it was going in the direction that whatever you say in this court can actually be proven, like easily proven. Like, for example, the OB book. What you say here, if the OB book says another thing, then clearly you misled the court. You lied under oath. I like that factor. And I don't think that Jonathan realized that whatever he was going to say from this point on, and it goes against or it's an opposite to what the OB book will say, whatever he was running away from, the implications with the law, implications with Dininda and them, I think he's going to be exposed. But I think that some of those so-called documents are going to be said they were lost or they were destroyed, like your pocketbooks. I don't believe that pocketbooks were destroyed, guys, because this is a cold case. And if anybody, in my opinion, who is in charge of such documents, and then it's time for destruction of those documents, and they actually destroy documents that are involved in a cold case, I think whoever is in charge of that particular archives should be punished in their pension fund. Take something out of their pension fund so that in the future, whenever they are going to take out what you call garbage, they must make sure that they separate cold cases and soft cases and then destroy the ones that no longer are going to be needed, but the ones that are still going to be needed to be kept safe so that when a case becomes hot, like that of Senzo Meyiwa, all those documents are already prepared and they are ready to be, registered out so that it can go to court and prove or disprove whatever the witness is going to testify. Now, man, it's about time that we started punishing public officials through their pension funds when they make a mess up with a South African citizen, whether it's the life of the South African citizen or the citizenship of a South African for that matter. It's about time that they are held accountable. The other question that Mshololo asked was about the uniform. How were they dressed on this particular day when they were escorting accused number 2? Of course, he said they were in full uniform. He did explain, he said that they were wearing full uniform, which included bullet vests. You know how those bullet vests make them look. Secondly, they had a war armor. I'm not quite sure what a war armor is. I'm thinking it's those hard plastic stuff that kind of like protects like important areas of the body. And then he said he was also having a 9mm pistol that was in his holster and a rifle that was slinged across his body. Now, if I remember very correctly, that in South Africa, the army and the police are not allowed to dress in such a way that reminds South Africans of the olden days, like the apartheid days. Not only about apartheid days, but also South African citizens must not feel intimidated in any way when they see a traffic cop or when they see a police officer or when they see an army personnel on the street with all these regalias and making us so that we don't feel intimidated or feel like, oh my goodness, is there a war that I'm unaware of? Is there a threat to our country that we are not aware of? Or maybe we're in danger that we are not aware of, or whatever it is that they know. We must not feel that way at all. That is why they need to dress down. Particularly the army, they're not allowed to even carry a pistol on them when you see them on the streets. They just have the uniforms. All of the, rankings as well are removed. They just walk with their uniforms on the street. So I was a little bit curious. I was like, if Jonathan says, because the judge, if you remember, the judge asked him, is this how they usually dress? And Jonathan answered and said yes. And I was like, I'm going to the airport later at Ekurhuleni. I'm driving a visitor that we had at work. I'm going to whichever traffic cop I come across in Ekurhuleni, I'm going to ask them, how exactly do you guys dress when you are escorting a prisoner versus when you are escorting a VIP? I was quite shocked that what Jonathan told the court is how they dress when they are escorting a VIP, whether that is a minister or an MMC or a mayor. They dress in that regalia. And even when they dress in that regalia, they're also not allowed to be seen by the public in that way, so that the public does not feel threatened in any way. Now, on an ordinary traffic cop or a metro police officer must have a uniform, like how we always see them, and of course they will have the 9mm pistol in its holster. The moment now they start having all these other regalias and showing as if they're going to some war, then the public is going to get threatened in one way or the other. And also, it's also bad for PR of South Africa if tourists come into the country and they notice that, oh my goodness, there's a bunch of police officers dressed as if they're going to war. They must not wonder, while we were flying coming down to South Africa, was there some kind of a national threat? Or is there a war they are unaware of that South Africa hid from them? All of those things need to be minimized as little as possible from what the traffic officer I spoke with at the airport today. So, of course, meaning that Jonathan lied under oath that this is exactly how they usually dress. And when they are escorting a prisoner or a suspect that is known to be dangerous, as long as the suspect is in handcuffs, and usually the handcuffs will be at the back, not in front. Like Jonathan said, the handcuffs was in front of his body, not at his back. He lied there. That when they are escorting a suspect for pointing out, and it's a dangerous suspect, they chain basically that suspect behind their back. So I was like, that's exactly what Ntanzi said, that he was chained behind his body. And then this Jonathan person even abused him in the car by pushing the seat right up against his knees to make him so uncomfortable during the journey. I'm not quite sure, to Northwest or wherever else they were driving him around Gauteng. I was like, how cruel is this Jonathan person is? You are a devil, sir. If this is true, you must do an introspection. Find out exactly, why did you become a police officer? Was your intentions to serve and also to protect, or was to cause harm? You really need to do some introspection, because you're evil, allegedly. So now, if he's dressed like that, can you imagine now Ntanzi, who's number one being tortured, he's been beaten, he's been tubed, and whatever else that they may have done to him, and then you have Jonathan dressed like that. How do you think he will feel? Of course, he'll be intimidated, period. If an ordinary South African can feel threatened by just police officers dressed like that, without them be feeling guilty of any crime they may have committed, can you imagine when you are actually accused of committing a crime and you're being escorted all over these places? How are you going to feel? Your state of mind. The other question that Advocate Mshololo asked Jonathan was about the confession. How did he know that Ntanzi was going to confess? I think he was fidgeting a little bit in his brain how to give an answer. And he said, okay, he was pushed against the corner here. I realized that he had no any other choice but to give up the name of the person that told him that actually Ntanzi is going to make a confession. I think he said it was a Colonel Muganu who told him about that he's going to do a confession or make a confession. Let's not forget, guys, that Ntanzi was taken from his cell the entire day and the whole night. Tell me that by the time he met Rapadu, do you think he was in his right state of mind? Do you think he was sober and sound-minded when he sat down eventually to make a confession to Rapadu? I do not think so. In Zulu, when I feel sleepy, there are one of two ways I would say that. I would either say, hey, ngitago buthongo, meaning I'm drunk of sleep, like deep sleep. Or I would say, yo, ngiyozela, meaning I'm falling asleep or I feel sleepy. So at 2:30 in the morning, you've been driven around and you've been driven to a whole new province or another province the entire day. How do you think you feel by the time you meet this Rapadu? Logically speaking, how would a human being be feeling at that time of the day? You have not slept, possibly not eaten or drank water. You are dirty. You haven't bathed in 8 days. You haven't spoken to your family in 8 days. You have no legal representation. With all of this that is happening and other constitutional rights of yours are being violated by the people that are saying they are here to protect and to serve us. How exactly was his mind sound and sober. So all of these questions that Advocate Mshololo is asking is basically to dispute everything that Jonathan has denied on the stand today. And I thought that was very interesting and intelligent way of actually tricking the witness on the stand, and also was trying his level best to make the court understand that accused number 1 or accused number 2, they were not assaulted and they had no injuries. Like, how would we believe that they had no injuries? What about the inside? Yes, internally, you guys are very good in making sure that people do not see any visible injuries when you are tubing, you are torturing them, and all of that. The other thing that also shocked me today, that was introduced, I think, by Advocate Ngomezulu, electrocuting accused number 2. I was like, whoa, the famous apartheid way of torturing a person into a false confession. So like I mentioned earlier, that during the break, Advocate Mshololo was handed a document by the state, and so she asked for time that they adjourn so she's able to look at the document and also consult with their clients regarding the document. And of course, Advocate Baloyi had no issue. Like I said, Advocate Baloyi, as long as you're asking for an adjournment, he's not going to object to that. I saw the judge himself a little bit reluctant about that, like, oh, so should we adjourn until tomorrow? And then Advocate Baloyi is like, I have no objection. I'm like, of course, you're not going to have an objection. It's an adjournment. It's giving you more time to fix your case, that you are not ready. In fact, not even ready anymore, that you've lost a long time ago. You are really, really trying to pull it out of hell, resuscitate it, and then it comes alive again. All these testimonies that we've been hearing, even from the testimony that we heard from Jonathan, it's still not looking good for the state. Sorry, Baloyi. So Advocate Mshololo said she was not done with the witness and she reserves the right that he should be recalled at some stage to be cross-examined with the new developments that just landed on her lap during lunchtime. Of course, they said tomorrow morning tomorrow morning they are going to resume, and then he will be cross-examined, or a new witness is going to take the stand and give the evidence in chief. But anyways, guys, nothing that much that I can actually report about what happened in court today, because I don't think there were any fireworks, especially from the witness as well as from the advocates that cross-examined him. Yes, there were some really nice questions that were asked, but no fireworks, nothing that I can bring here and we can talk about. But anyways, guys, if you like the video, give it a like. If you didn't like the video, give it a like. Anyways, do subscribe to my YouTube channel, and don't forget to click the bell notification so that you get notified every time I upload a new video. Thank you so much to everybody that's super thanking the channel. I highly appreciate you guys for supporting the channel financially. You guys did see where your money goes to. When I got invited to an event, you know, that money came handy in order for me to be able to buy all those nice stuff. Why? Because y'all, the clan members, you are brilliant human beings. I love you from the bottom of my heart. So guys, do leave me a comment down below and let me know, what did you think about what transpired in the North Gauteng High Court in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial today? I'm interested to hear your point of view because you know who we are, right? We are the self-appointed experts. Anyways, guys, share the video far and wide, and don't forget to like and share other YouTubers' videos, and also subscribe when you come across them. Thank you all so much for watching. Goodbye.